trend of goonism, of the use of goons in political contests. The fact that it has gotten to where it has so far, at least two people have been confirmed to have died in the Homa Bay case. Property was destroyed, quite a number of vehicles. Some hotels were also destroyed. Some politicians are accused of making insightful comments, yet they still remain free. And you've been here, you've witnessed and observed quite a number of elections, even as a legal practitioner, or even in the new dispensation since 2010. And this issue of having militia used by politicians is not something new. Yet the cases were very few, and you could point out a few politicians who were culprits. This time around, it would appear that any aspirant or candidate finds the necessity to have a small militia to accompany them. What kind of risk do we run with this trend?
Thank you very much. I do not think it's every candidate. I think these are mostly government-oriented politicians. And you can see the people who are responsible, at least in the Standard newspaper. If a police officer can get killed, as in Homa Bay, and what happened there was like a shocker. How do you place barricades? How do you place stones on the road? How do you block people from accessing places all over? If I were Ruto and his brigade, I would say, go ahead, sell your idea. Sell whatever it is. And he's out there telling people that, the opposition are brainless. They are brain dead. They have no ideas. They have nothing to say. He's only fueling the anti-government sentiments in the people who the opposition wants to reach to sell them the whatever idea that they have. So if I were him, I would just, in day who follow, for instance, Honorable Gladys Wanga, go do 3 meetings. If you feel that this one meeting has actually, turned the tables against you in the political sense, go do your 3 meetings after that. Go house to house. Go purge, as it were, the sentiments of the opposition in your residence. It's a free world. Let's not forget that we are a democratic state by constitutional edict. So this is not something that you can wake up and say that, we will have a dictatorship. We're going to have a technocracy, like, Ruto is being railroaded into doing by his foreign benefactors and masters. So the previous elections, we never saw this degree of violence, except, of course, the 2007 period, which you can see the harbinger, the sort of scenario that we are creating is funneling and leading to that eventually, if we're not very careful. Now, the persons responsible are not doing their job. But this is because they are in bed with the Goonism and the goons, they themselves. When you compare, for instance, the 2017 election, when there was a boycott in some areas by the Raila-led faction at that period, after the second turn of elections, there was a time that, everybody felt that, look, this is too much. You can't go to the election period with this sort of scenario. And there were fears that the election could be cancelled, but it wasn't. So in one sense, I think this is leading to the scenario where I think the president wants to reap the harvest of chaos so that then the IEBC can declare, and they have pronounced this on several occasions, directly and obliquely, that we may not have the elections in 2027 if the scenario erupts into violence. So he may be leading to that, because probably the statistics that are on the table for him and neither favorable nor encouraging to him when he sees, for instance, the rise in the popularity of the slogan of one term. But the fair and square win in a democratic state of they who are on the ballot is something that is to be desired because of legitimacy. Because even if he were to win in that scenario, the lack of legitimacy would confront him and accost him along the way. Look at Ivory Coast, for instance. When BAMBA was barred last year from contesting, what happened? There was apathy. There was voter apathy. And so we have Alassane Ouattara right now, who is viewed and seen as the puppet of France. And there have been rumors going around that he may be actually providing the springboard for France to attack the West African nations that are anti-France. So the lack of legitimacy, precipitated by this in the long run, even if he were to win, would be something that, for me, I would question largely. So Goonism is not a solution to the political disfavor that his regime has encountered.
And even as we continue this conversation, allow me to welcome onto set Joe Mutambu. Joe Mutambu is a former MP Mwingi Central. Karibu sana, Bwana Mutambu, onto the set. As we continue, the People Daily on the front page makes a very interesting analysis of this, and they say why Goonism is greatest threat to Ruto's re-election bid. You talked about the possibility that these acts of Goonism could benefit some people politically, but according to this, they say it could actually be a threat to President William Ruto's re-election. Do you see this as something valid? Is it worth a discussion?
And that's what I've said. That's what I've said.
Okay.
I don't think that his political advisors are able to see, probably, I don't know, because you see, in my view, even within the historical continuum and the context, you go back to the biblical context and the historical, aside from the biblical, of Nebuchadnezzar, you have to have someone who engages in the spiritual realm for your leadership, for legitimacy. And you see, in the biblical context of King Nebuchadnezzar, he needed to have prophets and seers and wise men, the Chaldeans, and so on and so forth. People who would get out of the natural and be able to tap into the supernatural. Now, for him, I do not know who advises him, both A, on the political front, and B, in the supernatural, spiritual realm. Because if he were to tap in the spiritual, supernatural realm, then he would see that a lot of Kenyans at the spiritual realm are disaffected. And that disaffection is simmering and totally unexpressed. So for him, if his political advisor is telling him that this is the way to go, the way to crush your opponents, don't give him an opportunity to express themselves, then he is, as it were, again, sowing those seeds that he will have to reap of disaffection. Because if you're blocking people from then the freedom of expression in the political realm, then what are you doing? People are seeing that, oh, so you want me to attend your meetings where you don't want anybody hindered or blocked, but when I want to exercise my freedom, then listen. It doesn't necessarily mean that you are accepting or acceding to that other political front's ideas, ideologies, or whatever it is. You just want to listen. You just want to see what is on the table. So for him, he is, as it were, decimating the numbers that are out there. And then he's portraying himself as intolerant and totally undemocratic. That, unfortunately, will work to his disadvantage.
Right. Bwana Mutambu, this issue of Goonism and whether or not it will affect the politicians, we'll wait to see. But it's a reluctance by the people charged with protecting life and property that's even more baffling. The standard as